Welcome back to another episode of Monday Night Live. First of all, I want to give a little shout out to Speedball Districts football club who took out the Division 3 seniors and reserve premierships. Did a little bit of work with those guys in the off and pre-season, and it's good to see that they got to take it out and get to move up to Division 2. Congratulations to those guys. But tonight's topic, I wanted to talk about when's the right time for your kids to lift weights, and everyone kind of throws a number out there. It's like, I think it'll be 14 years old, 16 years old. They're going to be, supervised, or they can only go to certain gyms and blah, 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 blah. The general rule of thumb, is whenever they're actually mature enough to take instructions from a competent trainer. The reason why I say that is strength training isn't bad or is going to impede their development and like they'll stunt their growth as the most popular concerns or anything like that. It's more that teenagers tend to don't really understand their own limitations and barriers. So what they do, they just go load up and just see where they fail, rather than learn safe practices, which will actually transfer quite nicely when they're 19, 20, 21, where they can really take advantage of what they've learned when they're 13, 14, 15, if they've learned really good technique. And in the US, they're quite renowned for, getting kids to start, weight training and weight, speed work, plyometrics, you name it, at a really young age, and they end up churning out athletes like no tomorrow. And it's an athlete factory out in the US, and there's a lot of really good coaches that over there. They're really pushing resistance training for kids that's relative to them and their development. Kids develop at different ages, different chronological ages, and this is where a number's not really good to use on they're going to be 14 or 12 or anything like that. Usually when they're competent enough to actually listen and understand, and they've got a coach who can support them and help develop them throughout the teenage years, late childhood and teenage years. Excuse me. The idea of gyms only allowing kids of either 14 or 16 years old or whatever it may be, or an age limit, is because of insurance reasons. Is potentially younger children are less mature and not going to be able to understand the actual inherent risks and dangers that comes with resistance training, especially when you got a bar on your back or anything like that. This is why we always, a lot of strength and conditioning coaches, PTs, would actually recommend is actually to see someone who's got experience working with youth and developing youth and progressing youth under a barbell or anything like that. And even from my own perspective as a coach, working with youth in the past, I personally wouldn't get any kid under a barbell for at least a year until they're competent in doing like a goblet squat with a dumbbell or a kettlebell. They can do kettlebell deadlifts, dumbbell overhead pressing, incline pressing, whatever it may be with dumbbells before you actually progress them to the barbell. That's my general rule of thumb. Some kids will progress faster than others. Each kid's going to progress at a different rate. It's going to take it with a grain of salt. If they progress really quickly, then you can actually progress the exercises along their journey as well. In terms of the stunting growth part, there's actually no evidence to really support that. The only time that's actually occurred within the literature is when the bar was excessively loaded, they weren't supervised, or the supervision was inappropriate. That's when potentially something haphazard has actually happened, like, and it has gone for a long period of time, or parents are worried about injuries in the gym. And the only time they really get injury in the gym is A, poor technique, B, horsing around, C, not concentrating, and D, inadequate supervision. So for all the parents out there, and even those who got young kids or coach young kids or anything like that, strength training is actually good. It's actually going to further improve their development in whatever sport they're playing. It's also for health-related reasons, more muscle mass. I mean, you can have improved quality of life. You can feel stronger, more powerful. For those who do strength training, who do lift, usually they're more resilient as well for any adversities that do happen, and they do understand there's a bit more of a process involved with strength training, that it takes a long period of time to actually develop. It's something you can't pay for and get an instant quick fix, like, surgery, get the consultations, blah, 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 get the surgery, couple of weeks, recovered, boom, done. Strength training is different. It takes many years to develop, or strength, many years to develop. You're constantly learning and you're constantly getting better. I'm going to wrap it up there, but I might continue on in terms of what sports are best for kids. Actually, before I forget, this is actually a real critical point. Parents think weight training is excessive for the bodies for their young children. Then you just look at backpacks, and kids' backpacks are heavier than ever before. The textbooks they're lugging around. So why wouldn't you want to make them stronger so they can withstand the excessive load? Especially if they're walking to school, riding to school, they're in a shitty position, shitty posture. So all that is doing is further heightening that. When you look at running as well, a lot of research has suggested that we have 3 to 5 times our own body weight when we're running and jumping and landing, traveling through our body in a real short period of time. So would it make more sense to actually get your children stronger to withstand those forces? Yes. So these are some little things to actually be mindful of in terms of whether or not weight training or strength training, resistance training, whatever you want to call it, is actually safe or not. Key take-home messages: 1, find someone who's competent in training youth. 2, make sure they're actually mature enough to actually understand what the inherent risks and they can actually take instructions on. And 3, it's just a learning process. Get your kids to do it, twice a week. It's a good starting point. Whole body. Don't have to go in isolation or anything like that. And good technique. When we practice good technique, you're either getting better or worse with technique. If you're doing practice, you keep constantly practicing more shitty reps than good reps, you're constantly getting worse. If your technique is really bad, but is slowly getting better, but still is not up to par for where it should be, that's fine, as long as it's progressively getting better. I'm gonna wrap it up there. That's it. I'll continue on from this conversation next week. We'll talk about what are some really good sports if you're looking to really develop your kids at a young age. What are some good sports to get your kids into, get their toes in the water in terms of help them develop into other sports, and the idea of late specialization versus early specialization of should we get kids doing one sport quite early, or should we get them playing multiple sports whilst they're quite young. Till next time. Peace, not piss.